The following is a special presentation of iRacing on LSRTV, your home for sim racing. One step closer to the end of segment number 2 and to the end of the regular season. As always, happy that you're spending a Monday night with us at LSRTV and iRacing Live. As always, myself, Evan Pocono, Brian Backlund, Trevin Valderrama with you at the LSRTV booth with executive producer Cisco Scardabusa downstairs, bringing us to you this evening. And Brian, do we come off of one of our first off weeks at a good little bit of time, but as we look back on how we've gotten here, the 4 weeks prior to tonight, all Dylan Jones. He got his first win of the year to kick off July at Chicago, then won Daytona, then won Kentucky, and then won New Hampshire. So we come into this maybe as a fresh start for the rest of the field, hopefully.
Indeed, and I look at the practice times here in this session before qualifying, and for a guy that's on a roll like Dylan Jones was, winning 4 in a row, he was not that fast in practice. Was 11th fastest, which I know that doesn't sound horrible, but compared to what we've seen him do over the last 4 weeks, it's not that great. And he was over 0.4 of a second off of the fastest car. He has not yet turned a lap in qualifying, waiting to see what he's going to be able to do with that. But it looks like we might have an opportunity to see our first different winner in about a month here tonight at Pocono.
Yeah, we'll see if that's going to be the case. It was old Dylan Jones in the month of July. And Trevin, as we head into this evening, it has certainly shaped our championship picture. No doubt that Dylan Jones at his 4 wins has him comfortably at the top of the Segment 2 championship standings. Again, the objective in that middle 10-race segment of the season, so from rounds 11 to 20, is a separate segment championship, I should say. The top 3 drivers walk away with a little bit of purse money. The 21 points that Dylan Jones has above Brandon Bowie for first and second is the largest split in between 2 positions anywhere in the top 15 in the championship standing. So he is way out in front, while at the same time not necessarily being guaranteed this Segment 2 championship. We're coming in tonight. We still have 4 races to go, and a lot can happen.
Yeah, a lot can happen indeed, Evan, especially at, races like this that we have coming up. It's going to be one heck of a race here tonight at Pocono. Then you have a road course of Watkins Glen. Then you have the ever so difficult Darlington and then Indianapolis to end this segment 2 off. Now, Dylan Jones can, secure this a little bit more with consistent finishes ahead of Brandon Bowie or Andrew Freenars. Right now, though, Andrew Freenars at the top of the standings here in qualifying. We'll see how long that lasts for and if anybody else does take a time, but currently he is at the top, so we'll have to see how he's going to be doing against Dylan Jones and Brandon Bowie. As you talk about, Brandon Bowie is also on top of the championships here as well, but we still have a good portion of the season left to go, and I'm excited to see how this all works out for everybody.
Yeah, as Trevin noted, Brian Bowie still leads the overall championship, which is the grand scheme of things if you want to make it into the playoffs and to fight for the overall 2018 Full Throttle Real Sim Racing Cup Series title. It's Bowie, Guerrilla, but Jones, again, has really made a lot of headway in recent weeks, still 43 points off at the top spot, but that puts him safely, I think, into that championship cutoff. The likes of Freenars, Cozy, Preet, and Eberhardt getting safer by the week as well.
Absolutely, and that's what it's all about with 4 weeks to go, is just trying to get yourself set up for the playoff run now that we're getting ready to get there. And this is where, if you're somebody like Dylan Jones, you've already got the momentum, but if you're anybody else, you need to try to find that momentum, because we're getting to that point of the season where you need to be able to step your game up. We've seen what that 11 car can do, winning 4 in a row. You have to believe after the stretch that he's been on, he's ready for the championship battle. These other guys are going to have to try to find a way to be in this game and step their game up to be able to beat him. Otherwise, he may end up running away with this thing when it's all said and done.
We'll see if that is going to be the case. The qualifying session just now drawing down to a close, and we get set to go green flag racing tonight from the Tricky Triangle. 80 laps going to be the distance this evening, which means we get set to go green flag racing for what is going to be 200 miles tonight from Long Pond, Pennsylvania. Let's go trackside, introduce you to the LSRTV starting grid for round number 17, and we talk about the discrepancy, or a little bit of a fallback per se, out of the Dylan Jones camp into tonight. He's not even in the top 10 as we look top to bottom. Andrew Farinars qualifies on a pole with a 51.205, and will be joined on the front row by the 17 of Michael Guerrilla. Kyle Kamer, Brandon Boo going to make up Route 2. That's going to be 3rd and 4th position respectively, and Spencer Preet will start in P5.
Starting in the 6th position here tonight is Daniel Falkingham. Daniel Eberhardt will be right behind him, starting in that 7th position. Michael Cozy Jr. will start from the 8th position. And how about Gabe Wood starting 9th? And rounding out the top 10, Dwayne Vincent will start P10.
Harry Tiller in that 69 machine will be starting outside the top 10 in 11th position. 12th position will go to Troy Haight, and that'll be your last competitor to take a time here tonight at Pocono. The first car not to take a time will be Dylan Jones in the number 11 machine, starting 13th. 14th will be David Comstock. 15th, Lionel Callisto. Scott McClendon, P16. P17 will be Brian Chambliss. And rounding out your 18 car field for tonight here at Pocono Raceway, Austin Coop.
That is going to be the look top to bottom at your LSRTV starting grid. It is a long way around to the green flag as the cars get set to roll off of the pit lane. And Brian, it's something else that comes with that is any yellows are going to be very long tonight. Pocono quite infamous for that. Hopefully the drivers, the 18 car field in this race this evening can avoid those at all costs, and we get through this 80 lap affair in a good amount of time. This racetrack is one, as we've discussed before we went on the air, kind of a racetrack that's hit or miss oftentimes. If you get into a lot of yellows, it can really seem to drag on, but if you get green flag racing, this racetrack is a ton of fun. Of course, as you see the field go through the wide and the most highly banked corner of the racetrack, turn 1 to 14 degrees of banking, down to the tunnel turn, only 8 degrees of banking, and then the widest and the flattest 6 degrees in turn number 3. 3 very unique corners that are certainly make this racetrack unique to itself, and what makes it quite a challenge to set these cars up for.
Well, and it is a challenge to set a car up for this racetrack, and what you hear a lot of drivers, especially in the Monster Energy Cup Series, but even here on iRacing, is that you have to set the car up for one corner and make that one corner the best corner that you could possibly have. And most of these guys out here are going to use turn 3 as that corner that they want to set up, just because of how long the front straightaway is. You want to be able to get that good launch coming out of turn 3 so you can carry all that momentum down the front straightaway. You can gain or lose a ton of time if you don't get off that corner just right.
You lose a ton of time, certainly, and the straightaways are long as well. The Long Pond straightaway between turns 1 and 2, over 3,000 feet it is. Since it's a little bit shorter between 2 and 3 at 1,700, but that front straightaway, nearly 4,000 feet long. You need to carry that speed off of the corners if you want to find success here from Pocono. As always, we're happy that you're spending a Monday night with us at LSRTV and iRacing Live. American Ethanol, green flag in the air. We're off and away. It's round 17 of the Real Sim Racing Cup Series, and they already spread them 3 and 4 wide. First time to turn 1. It's pole sitter Farinars with the advantage.
Daniel Eberhardt did not waste any time in that 90 machine. He hopped right out of line, got to that inside line, and is now challenging for 4th position while everybody else is fighting behind them. Lots of cars fighting for position, but Andrew Farinars has absolutely set sail, already getting a gap on Michael Guerrilla in that number 17 machine as we come into the tunnel turn for the first time. Daniel Falkingham on that top side. A little bit of skirmish behind them between the double O of Gabe Wood and Harry Tiller, but everything seems to sort themselves out. But here they come.
They try to sort themselves out for the first lap, and that battle remains for the number 3 position right now at the racetrack. Inside advantage to Bowie, and it looks like he is going to be able to get that spot away from Kyle Kamer. The 8 machine, though, not really falling back much. He'll kind of stay to the right rear quarter panel all the way down. Again, that very long front stretch, 207 miles an hour into turn 1. But on that outside, just not going to work, even with the most amount of banking that you'll find anywhere on the racetrack. He drops 2 spots. Bowie through to 3rd, and now the one of Falkenham takes away 4th.
And what an impressive move that was by Falkenham to move up into that 4th position. And right now, these guys are fighting for every bit of track position that they can get. This is the most important part of the run here at Pocono, because you need to stay within striking distance of the race leader. If you fall more than a second or 2 seconds behind the race leader, especially if you're mired back in traffic like Daniel Eberhardt is right now, being back in 6th, it is going to be very difficult to maintain that track position and not give up a ton of time to the race leader. So all of these drivers are going to be working very hard to try to get as close to the front as they can right now in these first 4 or 5 laps. It's going to be very important for them to keep going.
It's very important to just get up and on the wheel and obviously continue to power on through. Scott McClendon issues early on for the driver who was slated to start in 16th position. He's already off for the racetrack. We'll see if he's able to get back on track and if that'll be the case or not, but so far he has already dropped off in a number 18 position. Radars now starting to get a little bit of breathing space in that number 1 spot. Guerrilla still there, P2. Bowie doing a good job of hanging on in that newly acquired 3rd running position, and you get Kyle Kamer, Trevor, once again going to have to go on the defensive. He lost all those spots that last time in a battle on the outside line, so this time he protects the inside. It's able to defend Daniel Eberhardt for the moment, but the battle for 5th, 6th, and 7th far from over. Even the 13 to Dwayne Vincent, the 37 to Spencer Preet. A whole lot of cars stacking up behind your 5th place runner.
Yeah, that's the nice thing about having a lot of laps in a race. You can figure out what is happening around you, and you can adjust yourself. As we see Brandon Bowie getting under attack by Daniel Falkenham now, he's able to get himself a little sorted out, but certainly Kyle Kamer was able to see where he was being a little bit beat up at, so he adjusted his line, and now he's doing a bit better on holding all those drivers back, as the number 77, Michael Cozy Jr., also trying to get Daniel Eberhardt out of the way. So just a lot of action on the track. And Evan, I'd like to point out that talking to some drivers, they had 40 laps of fuel in there. So this could easily go on 1 stop if we get a little bit of cautions in there for some breathing room for the drivers. But if they are able to maintain their fuel, there will only be a 1-stop race here.
See if they can stretch it just as tight as that. Again, 80 laps is the scheduled distance of this Pocono 200, and so far again a key to this race going greenish drivers finding separation early, and we've seen a good bit of that thus far. Certainly a handful of battles on the racetrack, still keeping an eye to see if Eberhardt's going to be able to get back to Kamer. No surprise that the 77 Michael Cozy Jr. was all over the back of the 37 to Spencer Preet that last time down the Long Pond straightaway. Those 2 team cars running together, very comfortable with sometimes literally running nearly on top of one another, so they're the tail end of that 4-car pack. But 37 to Preet picks up a spot. He lost 3 off of the get-go, so he gets 1 back as he claws into P6.
Falls into that P6 position and is trying to now track down, actually he's in the 7th position trying to track down Daniel Eberhardt, who holds that 6th position right now. He's right on the back bumper of the number 8 of Kyle Kamer, and they just cannot get away from one another. But you can look at this group of cars, and then you look a little bit further ahead, and the lead cars have gotten away. But now the battle is on for 5th position, as it looks like Kyle Kamer did not get that car to the bottom of the track down in turn 1 the way he wanted to. That opens the door for Eberhardt. He looks to the inside as they head to the tunnel turn. Looks like Kamer is going to be able to get a pretty decent run through the corner. Eberhardt tried to gas it up, but he's not quite going to be able to get there. And now here comes Spencer Preet in the 37. He looks like he's going to try to make the move down into turn 3 to the bottom of the racetrack, and now Eberhardt has to defend on the outside.
Eberhardt's going to have to hold off at the outside. That's the corner that you're going to be very patient with, rolling it back into the throttle with just those 6 degrees of banking to your advantage. And a seasoned vet like Eberhardt successfully does so. They'll be able to stay for the moment in what is P6 on the racetrack. Noted that Scott McClendon dropped out of this race. He has not been able to get back onto the racetrack, and there has been additional problems for Austin Coop, who started in 18th position, assumed 17th when McClendon dropped out of the race. It appears that Coop had a self-inflicted incident. He got into the wall coming out of the tunnel turn a few laps ago, spun out, got the inside wall. That car is heavily damaged and sits on pit road, so that'll be the second driver to drop off of the lead lap early on in this race.
And speaking of which, Gabe Wood having a little bit of problem. He slowed dramatically coming out of that tunnel turn, and the 78 of Troy Haight was able to get around him on that inside just easily. And now he's setting his sights on Harry Tiller right in front of him. And David Comstock still working it out and, you know, still battling it out against everybody out here. It's a little bit of a mess back here, but I'm enjoying this racing that we got going on. Currently, I believe that's Dwayne Vincent that David Comstock is working on that inside line. He is moving himself up quite a few positions. He's working on his third position of the night, or the fourth position, starting 14th, now currently in 10th after that pass from Dwayne Vincent, and Harry Tiller trying to do the same.
Tiller trying to do the same. He's been very quiet thus far in this race, and that 13 machine of Dwayne Vincent all over the back of him as he tries to get that position back. Vincent has been going the wrong direction, and Brian, in 2018 as a whole, really haven't seen that vintage Dwayne Vincent in some time as he sits stuck in mid-pack.
Now, it has not been the year for Dwayne Vincent so far through 16 events. He has just one top 5 finish and only 6 top 10s. So not been the year that he has been looking for. He is in a playoff position as of right now. If he can hold on to that, at least he has the opportunity to race for a championship, but definitely not the year you expect to see out of a past champion of this series. But just doing what he does, he just has a quiet begin to the race, and after a handful of laps, you usually start seeing that 13 car begin to creep closer to the front, but just doing what he needs to do at this point. And I've been watching a couple of these guys that started from the back of the pack. Dylan Jones, David Comstock, they started back in the 13th and 14th positions respectively. They are both now in the top 10, running 9th and 10th, and you can see Dylan Jones is in the middle of a hornet's nest right now as he's trying to get around the number 37 of Spencer Preet. As we have a wreck coming off of turn 3, it looks like everybody's going to keep the car straight, but Spencer Preet, and there goes the caution, Spencer Preet and a handful of others got caught up.
I think it was the 8 of Kyle Kamer who actually triggers the caution, and it is going to be the number 8 machine as it all got out of shape coming off of turn 3. Replay will show you that the 37 of Spencer Preet couldn't do a whole lot. He was catching up to the 8 of Kamer, and the 8 just got sideways, lost that back end, and instead of swinging all the way up to the wall driven like you would normally, he tracked down the hill a little bit, about a lane or so. He did that to save the race car. Problem was, at Spencer Preet's lane, they were side by side for position. They come down across each other, and the 37 does a great job of, after getting turned out of shape, he hits the wall, but he keeps it straight, and I thought that's where he might have been good. Kamer, though, the front end of that nose kind of got stuck on the inside wall. He spun it around, and that 2-car incident brings out the first caution.
Yeah, very unfortunate right there, just trying to save your car, and, you know, he did a heck of a job trying to do everything that he can, but unfortunately that car was down there, and, you know, it's just one of those things that, you know, trying to do everything that he can, and, you know, obviously, you know, close racing, and unfortunately just got a caution out of that.
It'll be the first time we slow things down. Obviously, the damage not going to be fun for Kyle Kamer. I'd almost argue, though, Kamer's damage isn't as bad as the damage that we saw on Preet's machine. The 37 pancaked that wall a lot harder, I thought, than Kamer did, as he got up against it and eventually spun all the way around. But, Brian, those are 2 fast cars battling for position, and it brings out, of course, as we noted, first caution flying on a night. Would expect this to bring everybody down to the pit lane, and when you assume everybody takes fuel, doesn't change up much on the strategy. You still need an extra pit stop if you do come in on this cycle to get to the end if we were to go on a green flag stretch. So, business as usual. I would expect as drivers look for fuel and tires.
Absolutely. After that run, just looking at it, they ran 10 laps on that run, and if you look from the beginning of the run, Andrew Freenars ran a 51.42, and when the caution came out, he ran a 53.59. So he had already given up over 2 seconds from the start of the race to that run after just less than 10 laps on those tires. So absolutely, you're going to see all of these drivers come to pit road, and most definitely they'll all be looking for 4 fresh tires. I don't think 2 tires is even going to be a thought here tonight. So we'll have to wait and see what happens, but now is where you have to have perfection. We've seen over the last several weeks drivers having issues on pit road, sliding through their box or speeding on pit road, and what it has cost them in the race. So they have to be very perfect here on pit road not to make any mistakes. Andrew Freenarch has that #1 pit box, so he has to travel the longest distance on one of the longest straightaways in motorsports, and now he has to slide into his box. We see everybody down here, and I don't see anybody. Looks like Spencer Preet might have slid through. Actually, looks like he's going to be okay, but all the leaders are in their box cleanly. Looks like everybody's going for 4 tires and fuel. Have to wait and see who's going to win that race off of pit road. Dylan Jones is already down and away back there. He had a really fast stop. He might actually have a chance to challenge for the lead, but I believe the 88 of Andrew Freenarch is going to win that race off of pit road, followed by Falkingham, and then I believe Dylan Jones comes out in third.
And that white line across the pit lane where the green cone is, which essentially marks where that race off of the pit lane comes to an end trip. And a lot of the time, I'd say at most racetracks is a lot closer to that #1 pit stall, or that last one on pit road, #1 in the picking order based on the qualifying position. Sometimes it's right on the outside of the box, so somebody like a Freenarch just barely gets out of the box, and sometimes you'll actually see cars pass him on exit, but because that line's right there, he got a nose in front. That box, or that line, I should say, is a lot further away from the box here than it is at most racetracks, so Freenarch, I think, has to work a little bit harder. He did win that battle off of the pit lane anyways, but at most racetracks, he would have been safe by a lot more than he was, for sure.
Yeah, and you gotta love a little bit of extra room going into the pit lane. You know, we talk a lot about racing on track, and, you know, one of the most important races under caution is always the race off of pit road, and making sure that you have a lot of, you know, clean in and clean out. And, you know, we talk a lot about that, and, you know, one of the big things is, you know, sliding through the pit boxes, and Brandon Bowie unfortunately got caught up in that, and he lost a lot of quite a few positions through that exchange. So we'll see where he cycles through coming to this cycle of timing and scoring. So we'll see where he cycles through. He was third, and now he's going to be cycled all the way back to 7th position. So really bad stop for him.
A tough break. It'll shuffle up the running order. No change in that #1 position. No, it is going to be Freenarch who takes over the control position in this race, and we get set to pace for a little bit from Pocono. So what we'll do is we'll take a quick opportunity to step aside. When we come back, a restart due up, still in the early stages from Long Pond, Pennsylvania. Andrew Freenarch, your pole sitter, still leads the Pocono 200. You're watching the Full Throttle Real Sim Racing Cup Series on iRacing Live. Back live from the Pocono Raceway, you're watching the Full Throttle Real Sim Racing Cup Series, powered by English Auto L.L.C. on LSRTV and iRacing Live. Lights out on top of the pace car as we welcome you back into the LSRTV booth. One caution going to be extinguished as of the next time by. 14 laps of 80 going to be complete by the time we come around it and go for the regrade. Brian Backlund, early caution to flag in this race. Kind of going to group everybody back up for the restart once more, but based on the fact, as we discussed before we stepped aside there, nothing really changes here with the pit stops. Cars got fresh tires. I'm expecting to see a lot of what we saw that first time as well.
I think the main thing that changes is that the guy that's won 4 races in a row is now starting on the outside of the front row with an opportunity to try to take this race lead away from Andrew Freenarge. And after the role he's been on, you have to believe that that's going to be a big fear for that number 88 machine. And he's also got a couple of more fast cars right there as well. Daniel Eberhardt's up in that P3 position. Michael Cozy Jr. has climbed his way up to 4th. So quite a few of these guys starting to get up there and have a chance at this thing. It's going to be a very exciting restart.
Jones was not in the top 10 on practice times or qualifying times, but he's looking for a 5th in a row, but he's on the outside of the front row as the pace car goes down and in, and Freenar sets the pace. Green flag back in the air, and here comes Daniel Eberhardt for the inside of row 2. He'll fight for second up the inside of the 11 car.
Daniel Eberhardt still fighting going into that first turn. Dylan Jones on that top side. Oh, he gets a little loose. He's going to get out of line for a moment's time, but that's going to give the number 43 of Brandon Bowie the time and space he needs to get around that number 11 machine. And now he's going to set his sights on that second place position of Daniel Eberhardt. You know, that just goes to show one little slip up can just ruin that whole entire corner, and it just did. He's going to have to try and recuperate and get back to that back bumper of Brandon Bowie.
And just trying to kind of pick up the pieces and try to make another charge. But up front it is going to be Friedars, then Eberhardt, then the 43 machine Asso to Bowie, and then at 11 Dylan Jones, who goes down 2 on that exchange. Here comes the 43 car though, so Brandon Bowie didn't want to sit around either and wait for Dylan Jones to maybe come back and give him a counterattack. He goes to the inside of Eberhardt, and the Nani machine doesn't want to put up a defense, lays off a little bit into the corner, lets the 43 go on by, and gives the spot to Bowie. But Bowie, not all that fast off of the corner, Brian, pins the 90 behind him, and now Daniel Eberhardt is awfully close to the graphs of the 11.
Yeah, you have to be very careful getting off the corner here because of how long these straightaways are. If you don't get a good run, you open that door up for somebody to be able to get that run on you, to be able to make a move. Brandon Bowie was dangerously close to that happening with Daniel Eberhardt. Looks like maybe Eberhardt didn't quite get the run up off the corner that he needed either. Otherwise, he could have pounced on that second position. But now you see them down here in turn 1 or turn 3, trying to get a big run coming down this long front straightaway. This again is where you can gain or lose a ton of time, and you can see the gap that Brandon Bowie was able to put on Daniel Eberhardt because he got a much better exit of the corner. He was able to carry that momentum and open up about a 3 car length advantage over Daniel Eberhardt. Now he gets a pretty good run through 1 and 2 as well. Looks like he's really closing the gap down on our race leader. Maybe Freenar's having some issues up there because here comes Brandon Bowie as they go down the long pond straightaway.
Here comes Brandon Bowie again down that straightaway as they head to the tunnel turn, the tightest on the racetrack, and not a place that you want to go into side by side. Something tells me we'll see a couple of games of chicken down at that end of the racetrack as the night continues. But the draft is also such a big effect here, Trevor, on these long straightaways, these high maintained speeds, and you can see Bowie just following in the foot tracks of Friedars there. Almost got to him in a set of a 3, but as we come back across the start-finish line, loses a little bit of momentum off of the turn.
Yeah, he'll definitely get that momentum back quickly. You know, you talk a lot about the draft here, and once they start fighting it out amongst themselves, that's just going to give a little bit of help to Daniel Eberhardt to quickly make this a 3-car battle. You see him closing in so close into that tunnel, or not the tunnel turn, but the first turn coming to the tunnel turn, and Brandon Bowie falling a little bit back further to the grasp of Daniel Eberhardt, trying to get that position back again, but I'm sure Brandon Bowie will not give that position up easily, going through the tunnel turn now and still fighting it out. 3-car battle now. They have really come together those past couple of turns, so we'll see if Daniel Eberhardt can really capitalize on that or not. And now they're coming through that turn right here, and we're starting to see Dylan Jones and Michael Cozy Jr. as well close in on them, so we'll see how this works out for them.
The longer you wait to make a move, and the longer that line gets backed up before a position, it tells you that somebody towards the front of that group isn't the fastest on a racetrack. Farinas has gone relatively unchallenged, but Brandon Bowie just has some sort of a spark on this run. He continues to put the heat on the 88, and he really needs to get a good run out of, I would say, out of quarter number 1 or quarter number 3. Again, the stretch between 2 and 3, that tunnel turn to the Big Bend, the shortest of the racetrack, one of the more difficult places to execute a pass, but if you got to run there, you got to go for it. Let's see what the 43 does. He's got some speed. He shows the nose. At lap 19, we're going to go side by side for the race lead with Brandon Bowie on the inside of Andrew Farinas. The 88 going to be able to get back to the gas sooner. 43 can't hold her down. He'll tuck in line as Adani crosses him over, but now the battle for second instead of first.
And that is how hard it is to pass here at Pocono Raceway. He has the faster car, Brandon Bowie does. He had the run, had the opportunity, but Andrew Farinas was able to pinch him down, keep him from being able to get the run up off the corner, made him check up so that he had to give that position, and now he falls back to third. But Eberhard almost knocks the wall down coming off of turn 1. So here comes Bowie back with the crossover, and he will easily take that second position right back away from the number 90 machine. And don't look now, but here comes the 11 of Dylan Jones. He's beginning to creep into the picture now that these guys are going at it. And we have a caution here at Pocono. Looks like we have a wreck down on the backstretch. David Comstock in the 42 machine has went around, and I believe he might have had a little bit of help, looks like, from the number 78 machine back there.
Yeah, it looked like a lot of miscommunication. It was a 3-wide battle between 3 cars, obviously. It was for 11th on back, though. Kyle Kamer and it looked like Troy Haight, they were in their own two-way fight. And when you're side by side, you're not running as fast as you can. So the 42 of Comstock tried to make it 3 wide, did so by going to the inside. But then the other battle had negotiated itself out. The 8 of Kamer was able to get in front of Haight, and that was kind of it. And we talked about the game of chicken, Trevor. The 42 is trying to come up the hill to get as much of an arc into quarter number 2, that tunnel turn, as he can. And the 78, he expected, I think, to tuck in line behind the 8. That did not happen, though. Troy Haight maintained that line a couple of feet off of the wall. And the 42 turned up into him, bounced down, and took a huge hit to the inside wall. Came back up in front of traffic. Fortunately, nobody else behind them to pile in.
Yeah, and, that just goes with, I believe a little bit of miscommunications between spotters, if they had some, just saying, he's up there, and then he just goes a little bit further, and unfortunately now he's into the wall, and, just a really bad place for David Comstock to be. Unfortunately, probably heavy damage with the angle that he went into the wall, so we'll have to see how he works out, as we still have 15 cars on the lead lap, and that might change.
So now we'll see if drivers want to again come down to the pit lane. This run to Brian noticeably shorter than the last run we saw before drivers came down pit road. Again, look at the grand scheme of things with the fuel. There isn't much advantage in the long term to staying out unless you're somebody outside of the top 10 and maybe looking to pick up some track position. Other than that, though, again, no incentive for the leaders. So I expect Farinas to come in. It looks like he'll do so. We will see if anybody wants to mix things up, but looks like most, if not all, the cars onto the pit lane in agreement that they want fresh tires.
Indeed they will, and I think you're again going to see a 4-tire stop for just about everybody down on pit road. Most likely everybody over a second drop off in that 6-lap run right there. So the tires are extremely important. And now we have to see if Dylan Jones can get another really impressive stop. On the last one, he came into the pit stops in the 8th position, and he came out on the front row. So if he can have another fast stop like that, he might easily win this race off of pit road. Waiting to see what happens for that 11 machine, but everybody in their box cleanly, and it looks like everybody's going to go for 4 tires. Daniel Eberhardt's already down and away. Andrew Farinas having a slow stop as Eberhardt's already out of pit road. And now you see here comes Farinas, followed by Dylan Jones, and Brandon Bowie come out in that 2nd, 3rd, and 4th position. So Eberhardt easily to the race lead.
And he went with the 2-tire only call to break himself out of a little bit of a slump. And I certainly suggested that it might be somebody outside the top 10 who wanted to make up the track position. Trevin, I wouldn't have expected it to be the 3rd placed car to take the less tires to make up some ground, but maybe Eberhardt sees a lot of value in getting some fresh air because he negates the left sides, takes 2 only, and it'll put him to the race lead in this one ahead of Andrew Farinas, who again was tightly contested on the exit of the pit lane. It was the first car off with the 4 tires. Dylan Jones off 3rd overall, 2nd on the 4 tires, followed by Bowie to round out what are going to make up the first 2 rows.
Yeah, and it just, I was wondering how who would be able to take the 2 tires, because it was, as you pointed out, a shorter run this time than previous times. So and tires aren't really worn as much. So I was sure that somebody was going to take that chance and see how it worked out for them. Daniel Eberhardt was the one to do so, and we saw how tough it was to pass on this track. So I'm pretty sure he's leaning towards that to help, keep those cars back at bay until they have about an equal kind of tire going on underneath them, and then just keep on trying to keep them behind them at that point, trying to enter the corner a bit better and, trying to use their lineup. But we'll see how it works out. And Dylan Jones, always fast on restarts.
Always fast on a restart, so it'll maybe give him an advantage here to slot up the inside of Farinars. We saw that's exactly what Bowie did last time for the inside of that second row in line. So maybe now an opportunity for Jones, who has been in and around these guys up front since the last restart, but only went backwards, gives him kind of a shot at redemption, if you will, to get off and out of the gates much sooner on this exchange. And kind of a tough break at the end of all of this for Bowie. Immaculate as it noted, he drops a spot, will end up on the outside of row 2. And again, just based on the fact that the control car is on the inside of the front row, that line tends to get a better restart. Bowie could go from essentially fighting for the race lead to maybe as low as 5th, depending on how that restart goes.
Yeah, we saw what happened to Dylan Jones on the last restart. Started on the front row, but did not get through turns 1 and 2 at all. And he dropped back to the 4th position before he even knew what happened, and got lucky that that's all that he lost. I think Michael Cozy Jr. cut him a little bit of a break coming off of turn 1. Otherwise, he might have lost a couple more positions before it was all said and done. So the outside line is extremely treacherous down in turn 1 on restarts. It's such a line-sensitive part of the track just because of the new asphalt that you really have to just pin that car to the bottom of the racetrack. And if you're out there in the second group, you're basically in no man's land. So everybody that's in this race, they keep praying and hoping that they can get to the bottom of the racetrack. And it wouldn't surprise me if you see some games played down on pit road coming out of the pits, much like we see on some of the short tracks where these guys are trying to make sure they get to line up on the inside. Might see a little bit of that here tonight. Oh, and it looks like Eberhardt's coming to pit road.
Yeah, we'll see what the case is going to be, but for the Donnie Machine, Daniel Eberhardt went with the 2 tires only, and he is back on the pit lane. So, assuming that he's going to come back down, Trevor, because his intention was to not go for the 2-tire decision, it didn't appear to be a situation where he overshot the box. It made an audible call. I mean, the jack went down on the right side. Didn't look like he sat in there at all confused as to why the the left sides weren't going up. Looked like a pretty routine 2-tire stop, but he is going to come back in this time and go 4 tires. So now he has changed all of them, and he will rejoin the racetrack as the lights go back off on top of the pace car. So what he's hoping for is a longer run, because you're hoping to just kind of bite the bullet here, drop back to the tail end of the lead lap, get your fresh tires, and try to work your way back up. You need laps to do so, as opposed to just staying out on the old tires and slowly dropping back. He's hoping for a long run, I think, so he'd make up more positions that he would have lost. So an interesting decision there is going to wipe out all of the possible drama we were discussing, and the front row's back to where it was last time. Farinars inside and Dylan Jones outside.
We'll see if Dylan Jones can take a different approach, because he has learned from his previous restart what didn't work and what kind of worked for him. So maybe he's going to adjust a little bit more and try to take that advantage going into turn number 1. We were talking about that driver coming down pit road. Interesting decision that he had, Daniel Eberhardt, and we'll see how it works out for him. I see where he's thinking with that, as you were pointing it out, but we'll see how it works out with him in the long run.
And we'll see if this is going to be a long run or not. Past quarter distance from Pocono, a couple of other drivers dropped out of this one. Brian Chambliss, as well as Austin Coop and Scott McClendon. As noted, Dwayne Vincent also out of this race for the last incident. Troy Haight is out. Comstock's the only driver not on the lead lap, still running. Green flag back in the air, and it is the best start of the night for Andrew Farinars. Way gone to turn 1. Just like that, Bowie's going to slot into P2, and Dylan Jones trying to hang on to 3rd. First time tonight, it's Michael Cozy Jr. to the top 5.
And Dylan Jones, once again, did not get a good restart. He actually had such a slow start that the number 69 of Harry Tiller ran into the back of him when the green flag came out. That's what stacked everybody up from basically 3rd or 4th on back. and you can see Dylan Jones drops all the way back once again to that 4th position. Here comes Michael Coates, looking like he has a really good run coming out of the tunnel, trying to challenge Brandon Bowie for that 2nd position, but Bowie got a great run coming up out of that corner, and now he gets down into turn 3, trying to drive away from that 77 machine. Also looking into his, or out his windshield, seeing that 88 car. He was gaining on him a couple of runs ago and was actually a little bit quicker than that 88. Now that he's got that track position back, you've got to believe he wants to try to get back up there and challenge for that lead again.
He wants to get back up there and challenge for the race lead, but it's a couple of tough restarts in a row there for Dylan Jones that has him kind of stagnant. Went 13th to that front row after the first stint and the first exchange of pit stops so quickly. Looked like he was going to be able to walk into a great position to get his 5th consecutive win on the season. He's done it at a whole array of racetracks: Chicago, Daytona, Kentucky, New Hampshire. Why not go again at another 2.5-mile racetrack, this time the tricky triangle that is Pocono Raceway, but instead he finds himself in 4th and with another uphill battle to go.
And we still have over half the race. Keep in mind, he had a great strategy on pit lane to get himself up into that 2nd place position, so we'll see if that comes in handy again. I'm pretty sure you know, we'll have another caution because this track is one of the harder tracks to handle here once those tires go away. So, you know, I'm sure it's going to happen again at some point. You know, I hate to say that, but, you know, it's just a hard track to handle. It's really difficult, and, you know, it's one of those things that just continues to happen. We saw a lot of drivers have a little bit of issue coming into that tunnel turn during practice and the first turn, so I'm going to be keeping an eye out once the later stages of this race wear on.
And hopefully, again, you talk about some of the drivers wrecking out of this race. 13 still actively on the racetrack, and a couple of those other drivers are not on track, but at least still in the session, many of which, again, have already gone behind the wall and officially called it an evening. But you watch a battle right now as we pick it up between Kamer and the 8th, the 1 machine at Daniel Falkenham. That one is for 8th and 9th position. You should get more separation. This race should have an opportunity to go good distance, but we got a 3-car pack here in the center of it all. But now Harry Tiller trying to get into the conversation. He has had a couple of those hold-your-breath moments already as they continue to fight side by side, and I would suspect that tail car in line, that Ani 7 will line up loose, so he will. He'll tuck in line as they head to the tunnel turn.
Indeed, he did. He was not able to get up off of turn 1 the way he wanted to. Had to fall in line behind the 8 of Kyle Kamer, but Harry Tiller not going in the right direction at all. He restarted up in the 4th position after his incident with Dylan Jones on the restart. He's fallen all the way back to 10th position, so not what he was looking for on this restart, and he's just trying to get back into a rhythm. Meanwhile, we have a battle going on for that 3rd position. Dylan Jones is on the inside of the number 77 of Michael Cozy, side by side as they head to turn 1. Now let's go some 3 wide racing down into turn 1. I thought that Michael Guerrilla was going to do it. He swerved down like he was going to make that move, but he backed out before they got to the corner. Dylan Jones does move into that 3rd position as he was able to get the run on the inside, and now here comes Guerrilla looking to the inside of Michael Cozy Jr. as they head down to the tunnel.
Guerrilla, somebody else who started up front in this race, took the green flag from 2nd position and just has not gone forward since. Has dropped back a little bit, so look at Michael Cozy Jr., who's clawed his way up front. Dylan Jones in front of him, your biggest mover up 10 positions, and Guerrilla, who's dropped off 3, and that on a machine of Everhart, who's also trying to get back into the conversation here. A nice little melting pot behind Farinars and Bowie, who have pulled away from everybody else. Dylan Jones could have all by himself in 3rd. He's in front of the battle 4th on the back because those cars are fighting with one another, and he's not nearly as quick as the top 2, but as we continue to watch these fights go on, something tells me Brandon Bowie wants to go to the race lead. We saw him try a couple of times on the last run, and now that he's got ample opportunity, let's see what happens. His Farinars track's a little bit low down the Long Pond straightaway, and we wait to see when the 43 decides to make a move.
I think what he's going to do, you know, if I were a driver behind him, knowing that it's tough to pass at a track like such, you know, just save those tires a little bit better than Andrew is. Keep within striking distance, but not really use up the tires as Farinars is doing, and continue to press on, keep pressure on him. It's a really delicate balance that drivers have to, you know, go through, but long way. And once you start seeing the driver get a little bit loose in front of you, a little bit longer than the competitor in front of you will go time to strike, and hopefully you don't get loose as well. So we'll see how Brandon Bowie can take care of his tires. If he does, and and we'll see how long it takes.
And we'll see how long that process is going to take. Is if this green flag run stretches into 15, then 20, and so on and so forth, as you get deeper into the fuel run, you'll get to, kind of uncharted territory, points that you have not yet been to over the course of the race, and you'll have to kind of figure out what your car is going to be like at that point. Side by side for fifth, this one a little bit deeper in the pack. It's Daniel Everhart in the 90. On the inside of the 77, Michael Cosi Jr., just like that, up the inside, holds her smooth, he gets the spot, and he's going to be able to get back to the gas. It looked like that 77 Cosi was going to be able to challenge on the front stretch. He does have a little bit of a run. Does he decide to go to the inside? He does not. He'll stay behind, and Everhart is able to maintain that fifth position.
Well, that's going on now. We have a battle shaping up for third as Dylan Jones did not get a good run down the front stretch, and that opened the door for Guerrilla to get to his inside in turn one. However, for one of the first times tonight, maybe the first time tonight, Dylan Jones was able to use the outside line in turn one and actually was able to defend that position to hold on to that third spot. So maybe the groove is beginning to widen out just a little bit now that they've laid some rubber down on the racetrack, because I have not seen that second groove work as well as it just did right there for the 11 machine. But very impressive. But now you see Dylan Jones really missed the corner down here in turn three. He drove it off into the corner but did not get a good run off. And here comes Guerrilla once again with a great run coming down the front stretch. Looks like he might have the opportunity to challenge that third position once again. And here he goes to the inside, and they go side by side as they head back to one.
Side by side as the fight heads back to turn number one. And the 11 machine does not want to try to pinch him down. It's Guerrilla, gets the position. The 11 cuts down low, looks for the undercut, and does a good job of closing the gap back in, but not enough to go for the crossover, and it is now Michael Guerrilla climbing back towards the front of the field. He's back up to third. Has not been since the first run of the race, since he's been in that position on the racetrack, and Jones drops another one. He just got out of fourth, and now he drops back into the fourth position as he continues to try to figure something else out, as after being able to get through the mid-pack cars and some of the faster cars, he's gotten up with the top dog so far and has been looking for a little bit extra. We'll see if anything is going to be able to come from that, and if it does, it will happen shortly. Issues, I think, further back. Spencer Preet in the 37 machine spun around. That was all by himself, and I think that happened in the tunnel turn. Maybe turn one is where that happened. Lost the car off of the corner, spun it around, locked it up, did not hit the wall. I think he was able to keep it off. Caution we stay green.
Yeah, coming down now to that tunnel turn, Brandon Bowie looking to the inside of Andrew Freenars. We'll see what he does and if he saved enough tire to get around him. Andrew Freenars on that top side. Brandon Bowie gets a little bit loose on that back end. Now he's going to have to set back a little bit further, regain himself and see what else he can try on that next stint. He was going really quickly down that long pond straightaway, and we'll see if he can set him up again. Going down the front stretch right now, and coming too close to 5 to go here at Pocono Raceway. Very, very tricky triangle here, Evan.
And continuing to close in, and some of that might just be he flashes the nose to him and lets him know that, hey, I'm here, and maybe you can force an error out of somebody, but I think that constant pressure is not going to allow Freenars to kind of settle into a rhythm. The 43 machine is going to kind of force the 88 to dig a little bit harder, and obviously over the course of a long run could end up hurting both of those cars, I guess. If you're Guerrilla in third, again, in a pretty good position, although the 11 machine of Dylan Jones is pressuring Guerrilla as well. So there's really nobody in a fantastic spot where they can kind of just put this thing on cruise control and try to conserve. Everybody's got an answer to partner at the moment, which is keeping the pace of this race up.
Indeed it is, and it's providing some really good racing right now. And much like I believe Trevin was talking about earlier, the draft is playing a big factor in that. It's hard to get separated from a couple of the cars because the draft kind of keeps you close on these long straightaways. Brandon Bowie is able to really keep that gap to a minimum because he's able to draft off the 88. Same thing with Guerrilla and Dylan Jones. Dylan may not necessarily get the greatest run coming up off the corner, but he can use the draft to make up for that if he doesn't get that good of a run. And it just makes it very hard to get separated. You've got to have a significantly faster car in order to actually break that draft and get away. And we just have not seen that out of these guys so far here tonight. But Brandon Bowie just continues to wear out the back bumper of that 88 machine of Andrew Freenarge. He's looking for a way. I've seen him move his line around. He's moving up in turn 3, taking a higher arc into the corner, then cutting that car down to the yellow line, trying to get a good run, a straight run off the corner, and it has worked. He's been able to keep that gap close, but you can see Freenarge is beginning to try to move around and see if he can break that drive just a little bit. You saw him swerve down the front straightaway trying to do that. That actually provides an opportunity to break the draft and keep that 43 at bay for just a little while longer.
And keep him at bay for just that little while longer, and we'll see if it's going to kind of come to a point where the 88 then is able to pull away. And, you know, you talked about the other fights as well, if Dylan Jones and the fight with the 17 to Guerrilla, if Guerrilla is going to be able to finally get away, and that's going to matter. Caution flag is out, and it is the 90, Daniel Eberhardt, who, remember, took the 2 tires, took over the race lead, and it was hustling on the 4. He crawled all the way back up to P5 on his own, and then also on his own in turn 1. Same spot that we saw Spencer Preet spin out, go all the way around, knock it a yellow, and then continue on. The 90 machine couldn't keep it off the wall, and that is the 3rd on the night.
Yeah, 3rd one tonight here at Pocono, and you know, it just goes along with, you know, tires and people trying to get as much as they can, you know, before halfway, and trying to get themselves set up. What I'm noticing is drivers get up. We saw Michael Cozy Jr. in that top 3 position, then quickly fell down to about 6th or 7th, and then now is back up into that 5th place position. So a lot of drivers going up and down here. Some drivers having great laps, some drivers having bad laps, and they're just switching positions. And it's really cool to see how drivers will react to each and every single other one of them.
So this one's going to come right at the halfway point, Brian. This could be interesting because fuel might squeaky out to the end if you're able to conserve and this were to stay green.
It's going to be extremely hard. We talked about it at the beginning of the race. You can go right around 40 laps to the end with this coming out just a little bit more than 40 laps to the finish of this thing. They're going to have to be very careful. I imagine you're probably going to see several drivers that are running at the back of this pack come in and top off at the 1 to go just to try to give themselves that little bit of a cushion just in case this thing stays green to the end.
We get another yellow, certainly everybody will come in, they'll get fuel, they're going to be good to the end, but kind of like the discussion was over the weekend at Watkins Glen. Over there it was a 35 lap run on fuel, and the drivers at the end had to push about 37. Well, we're at Pocono, you got about 40 laps of fuel, good. You get the pit with 42 laps to go in this race. So obviously they're going to fill them up and go for the 4 tires. So the race off for the pit lane is going to come down, Trevin, to execution. So far, none of our leaders have made big mistakes.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. We'll see if Brandon Bowie makes another mistake or if he's learned and he adjusts to himself. So we'll see first drivers coming down right now. Everybody seems to be working themselves into the pit lane fairly easily. Brandon Bowie in it cleanly, and I don't see any other movement. Oh, Daniel Eberhardt actually overshot his pit stall a little bit, and it's, you know, so difficult now that they have implemented the pit crew members here. So we'll see how these drivers do. Dylan Jones. Now we'll see. That's too close to go. I think Brandon Bowie did get it, and then it was Dylan Jones and Andrew Freenarge, and that seems how they're coming out of this pit road, Evan.
Yep, 43 won that race off at the pit lane. Nice photo finish there to the line, but it is Bowie on top of Jones. And for the first time tonight, it does not play out for Andrew Freenarge. Your race leader for the entire night comes off at the pit lane 3rd. He'll be in a very unfamiliar position when this race gets set to go back under green flag racing conditions. As we pace at lap number 39, we look for the 1 machine of Daniel Falkenham, I assume, is going to come down to the pit lane. Brian, he did not come in the last time. You mentioned some drivers might come and top off. Wouldn't be surprised if somebody even just drove through the pit lane. That gives them the opportunity to actually pit right at the 1 to go. But if Falkenham did not pit, I would expect him to pit this time by, as you mentioned, try to get that little bit of extra fuel in case this thing were to run green.
And I believe that is a critically important thing. He absolutely has to come in and get tires and fuel before this thing goes back green. But this is also going to give him the opportunity to make sure he has as much fuel as possible in that car. And the pit crew has to do their job and pack that thing full to the rim to make sure that they put enough fuel to get him to the finish. And then you're probably going to see him begin to shut that car off, try to clutch it and save as much fuel as he can before we go back to green. You're going to see that throughout the field as well. I was actually listening to the 43 of Brandon Bowie. I heard him shutting the car off pretty much as soon as he got out of the pits. He's actually got the car shut down right now as they're coasting down the front straightaway. So all of these drivers are aware of what this means, and it puts them in a precarious position, Evan Pocono, because they could, in theory, if you're Brandon Bowie, if you're Dylan Jones, Andrew Freenars, go ahead and top off with 1 to go. The problem is you're going to give up all that track position. You've been up front leading this race all night long. Do you really want to take that chance? Because if we get a couple of cautions, you're going to have given up that track position for no reason at all.
It's certainly a gamble. If we get a yellow and you presumably haven't been able to just drive through the field, which has been a rather difficult task thus far tonight, everyone's going to come down and get fuel anyways at that point. If you stay out, good on you. You know, you topped off, you got fuel, you can go to the end, but you're not going to stay out on a yellow because everyone's going to come down, get fresh tires, and pass you up, which is why you'll certainly see the drivers towards the back of the pack. I'm already back here. There's no difference if I'm running in 12th, come down pit road, drop to 15th. It's not that big of a deal. Those drivers to top off and certainly try to make things a little bit interesting if this race were to go green to the end, with the restart coming up in the second half. But as we get set to complete lap number 40 and cross the halfway point in tonight's Pocono 200, let's take a look at our iRacing Midway Race Break, brought to you by iRacing, the world's premier online racing game, with professionally organized racing from NASCAR, IndyCar, IMSA, the World of Outlaws, and so many more. Halfway home for the Poconos, your race leader for the first time, Brandon Bowie, in the number 43 machine. Couldn't get it done under green flag conditions, makes the pass on pit road. He takes over the race lead ahead of Dylan Jones, who now runs second. Pole sitter Andrew Freenars at a race low P3, with Daniel Falkenham, or actually I think it'll be Michael Guerrilla, and then Daniel Falkenham continuing on through. Falkenham pitted, so he's actually going to come back in and top off. So scoring's going to update. It'll be Guerrilla, as noted, now fourth. Michael Cozy cycles through to P5. So behind them now, Gabe Wood going to be scored in the number 6 spot. Harry Tiller 7th. Lionel Callisto's 8th. Kyle Kamer on pit road at 9th. And everybody 9th on back pits because Falkenham's in as well.
And in the 11th position right now is Daniel Eberhardt, and then Spencer Preet is 12th. That's the last 2 drivers that are on the lead lap, and as you mentioned, they are on pit road topping off, trying to make sure they get as much fuel as possible. The rest of the drivers, multiple laps down. I believe all of these drivers actually have retired from the race for the evening. David Comstock in the 13th position. Troy Haight is 14th. Dwayne Vincent, we talked about him earlier on. He did not have the night he was looking for. He's going to come home 15th. Brian Chambliss will finish 16th. 17th goes to Austin Coop, and Scott McClendon, after just completing just a handful of laps, he will finish in the 18th position here tonight. And that's been a look at our iRacing Midway Race Break. For more information on the wide variety of sim racing possibilities online, visit iRacing.com to sign up today. And Evan Pocono, not only can you sign up for iRacing, but you can also maybe try to jump in on some of this action here on Monday night. There's plenty of spots available.
Segment 3 is going to be starting up soon, so there's certainly maybe the overall championship, and $1,000 is going to be out of your hands, but if you can qualify for all of the requisites to race in the series, you've got just as good a shot as anybody else to get a piece of the $300 Segment 3 championship purse. That kicks off in a couple of weeks here. First race of segment number 3 comes up September the 17th. So more information on that and your home for all things Real Sim Racing on our website. Go to www.livesimracing.com. Look for the Real Sim Racing tab up at the top of your page for more information. Pace car down this time. 41 laps complete, 39 to go. Can the cars up front make it? I don't know. The cars at the back sure can, because they topped off. We go green, and Brandon Bowie, first time as your race leader under green flag conditions.
And taking a look back a little bit further, Harry Tiller all the way in 8th position. He is far down the line here, now getting back up to 2x2 with Lionel Callisto going into turn number 1. Brandon Bowie taking off. Andrew Freenars all the way up to 2nd. Dylan Jones just not having a great night here. He's fallen back all the way to 3rd. And Michael Guerrilla right on his back bumper, followed by Michael Cozy and Gabe Wood. So we'll see how this all works out. Single file for now going through the tunnel turn, Evan.
The tunnel turn they go. The 43 Machine Bowie continues to lead over out your second place runner Andrew Freenars, who was able to get the good run up at the inside of the restart. It's Dylan Jones 3rd, Michael Guerrilla 4th, 5th to be determined. Cozy defensive on Gabe Wood. The double O's been quiet tonight, but he's trying to make some noise now in the second half.
And he had an opportunity coming off the tunnel turn to make a move for that position, but he just was not able to keep that momentum going. When they got down to turn 3, Michael Cozy was able to pinch him down, hold on to that position, and drive back away. Now you see Gabe would go way wide up in turn 1. I'm not sure if he missed the corner, but it's going to open the door for Harry Tiller in that 69 machine to be able to get to his inside. You can now see, though, Gabe was able to rebound from that. He gets a really good run up off turn 1, carries that momentum down the straightaway, and is able to take and hold on to that 7th position, or 6th position rather. And now they sit side by side right behind him. Daniel Eberhardt trying to battle to the outside of Harry Tiller for position.
Trying to get to the outside as he continues to try to make up some space. Had been doing a good job. Got into, obviously, I guess not, he didn't get into it. He was that last caution. And again, has to make the drive with the fresh tires for the back to the front. And on a machine going through the motions again. It's been a rough 20-25 laps or so for that driver as he again tries to continue to make up some space, and he's gotten back to where he started this race in 7th. So it's basically like he hits the reset button and he races on a 36 lap to go run to the end of this race. But certainly up front, Brandon Bowie, he had looked faster than Faridars after a couple of laps on the last few runs, had never been able to string together the charge to get all the way around him. Faridars is able to keep him at that 3/4 of a second difference, but the top 2, again, the fastest at a racetrack. Not the first time these two guys, the words I'm trying to say, these two guys have pulled away for the rest of the field. Trevin Dylan Jones is a second off, and he's still kind of very clearly, I think, the 3rd best car on the racetrack. He's got space to Guerrilla, Cozy. Guerrilla's doing a good job this time around, so we'll see if he's able to mount a charge, but Dylan Jones sits very comfortably in 3rd, has not quite found whatever Bowie and Farinars have got going on.
Yeah, absolutely. And taking a look back, Kyle Kammer has started 3rd, and he has fallen back all the way to 11th position, closely, you know, in the danger area of getting a lap down. You know, just 12 cars on the lead lap, currently 11th, so we'll see how that works out for him. Just currently passed by Daniel Fockingham. Now Daniel Fockingham working on Lionel Callisto. Lionel Callisto got into the wall coming out of turn number 1 a lap ago, so maybe just looking for, you know, building that speed back, and them two have been fighting for a little bit, and then the number 8 of Kyle Kammer has gotten into the mix the more that they have gotten fighty around each other. So the 97 now gets passed by the number 1, and the number 8 going to try and take that position away as well, going down that front straightaway, Evan.
Headed down the front straightaway, it's exactly what they are looking for right now. Back down into corner number 1 as these drivers race at full speed. Kammer low on the inside of Callisto, and getting awfully close to that yellow line on the flat. There's a lot of banking down there compared to the rest of the corners, but anything you can get to help that car rotate. And here we go, side by side. I was just about to say, Brian, do they go 2x2? And they did not want any of that. The 97 of Lionel Callisto backs out of it, and it gives the spot to Kammer. Even in the second half of this race, these drivers still do not dare to try a tango in the tunnel turn.
The tunnel turn for so many years has been the most treacherous part of this racetrack, especially if you try to do side by side. That's equivalent to trying to go side by side through the S's at Watkins Glen. It's just not going to work, and makes it for a very, very big nightmare if you don't get off that corner the way you need to. So very careful, even like you said, at this stage of the race. I think if that was for the lead on the last lap, you might have seen a little bit more aggression, but running in the positions they are in right now with still over 30 laps left in this thing, no reason to really push the issue at this point. And I look up at the front of the field. Brandon Bowie's got the race lead now of Pocono, but he has not been able to drive away, much like we were talking about prior to that last run. I believe the draft is keeping the 88 at, or within striking distance of the 43 machine. He's just able to hang on just well enough to use that draft to carry him down the straightaway and keep him with a reasonable gap right behind that 43 machine.
And we're kind of at the point in the run where if the roles were reversed, like we've seen many a times tonight, with Farinars leading, Bowie chasing, this is where Bowie started to really put the pressure on, leading me to believe that that 43 has got a little bit of a better car in the long run. So we'll see if Farinars continues to harass him at a number 2 spot. Maybe either the 88's figured something out, or it is that draft, the great equalizer, that it keeps him tucked right there. It's going to make that car awfully tight off of the corner, but it gets a good run through turn number 1, flashes the nose. If the 88 wants to, he can force this issue, and a battle for the race lead down to the tunnel turn, and it is exactly what he will do. Farinars back to the race lead for the first time tonight, doing to Bowie what Bowie could not do to him. and the 88 driven barely had position. But that fraction of a nose that he inside was enough to say for the 43 machine to say, I don't want any of that. Dropped out again, playing that game of check-in down to the tunnel turn, and he takes the lead this time by.
Yeah, flawless job done by Andrew Freenar's way to get himself back up to that race lead. Brandon Bowie now having the same problem that he was in last stint, and he's just going to have to find his way around him again if he wants to, but Andrew Freenars has seemed so strong here tonight. I'm not sure it's going to happen, but, you know, you never say never. This track can come out and bite you at any moment's time, so we'll see how it happens for Andrew Freenars later on in this race. Still doing such a great job, everybody else. Gabe Wood trying to make quick work of Daniel Eberhardt in the tunnel turn right now as they speak, or as I speak, and, you know, just great racing going on. Michael Guerrilla as well, trying to work on Dylan Jones. So, you know, there's always a battle going on. It's just a little bit separated, Evan.
Yeah, you got certainly big pockets of space between cars here and there. Dylan Jones still that second off. I've been very impressed with how well Guerrilla has done this run. Don't want to discredit him, saying that Dylan Jones is comfortably the third best car on the racetrack. He has been practically all night long, but Guerrilla, who started second, dropped off a little bit. I think now is just kind of finding his stride, and is doing a good job of pretty much matching him. So first and second on top of each other, third and fourth on top of each other. Wood and Eberhardt got a little bit of space, but behind them, Cozy and Tiller on top of each other. Daniel Fongenham got a little bit of space to Kamer, and that's pretty much the back of the pack with the 12 cars still being scored on the lead lap. So, you know, you look at those drivers back there, no surprise you're seeing the separation, but there's a lot of pairs of two around the racetrack right now as we get set to come to 30 laps to go, this time by the line.
There's a lot of pairs of two, but there's about to be a group of four at the front of the field because Dylan Jones and Michael Guerrilla, they are closing that gap down on Andrew Freenars and Brandon Bowie. They have been about 0.2 of a lap quicker for the last handful of laps, and they have gotten within a second of those front runners right now. And you can see, I almost think they might be working together just a little bit because I was watching this just about a lap and a half ago, and Guerrilla had the opportunity, got a great run coming out of the tunnel, could have made the move on Dylan Jones to try to take that position away, but he instead decided to stay right on his back bumper, didn't want to make that move, just stayed right there like he was trying to push him down the straightaway and give them as much momentum as they possibly could get. And now they just continue to inch a little bit closer lap after lap to the front runners and see if they can try to challenge them and potentially make this a four-way battle for the lead.
Yeah, that's the objective for them, certainly, to be able to catch up to the race leaders and make this a battle for the race lead. And a little bit of that comes with not fight with each other. So maybe if you're Guerrilla, I don't think it's for a lack of speed or a lack of trying, but almost in your best interest. Don't necessarily go up and crowd him. You guys are doing a good job, especially when the top two were fighting. Right now they're single file, but Bowie still looks like he's a threat as he has any time. He's been on the back bumper of the 88 this evening, but the rotted and playing for third and fourth position serves them well. Guerrilla not making up as much time per lap as the 11, but he is making up some, and problems with the 00 and Gabe Wood. That car ended up on the pit lane, spun that last time, coming out of turn number 3, and actually spun it onto pit road, shades of Casey Kane, and actually coasted backwards down the pit lane and into his pit stall where he's trying to get some repairs.
Yeah, very fortunate for him to spin down pit lane and not into that wall, but we'll see how he recovers going on. And just as we speak right now, Brandon Bowie coming down pit lane. We'll see how it goes on right now, but up towards the lead as well. Dylan Jones now assumes that second place position, and Michael Guerrilla moves up in that third place, Evan.
Yeah, so Brandon Bowie comes down pit road. Freenars in the 88 machine does not. He stays out. The only thinking I can see behind this is the 43 comes in. It's going to go to the right side. It's going to go to the left side. It's going to be a two-tire decision for Brandon Bowie. I only saw the right sides go up, so 2 tires and fuel for Bowie. Does that mean those cars don't have enough gas to get to the end, Brian? I'd assume at this point you got a good idea if you do or you don't.
Based on the fact that Bowie just came to pit road, that tells me that these guys at the front of the field most likely are not going to make it to the end of this race without having to come to pit road for fuel. Unless they can go into some massive conservation mode at this point, it's going to be very difficult. But we don't know how much these guys were able to save under caution, how much they're able to save under green. as long as these corners are, especially turn 1 and turn 3, you can shut the car off, put the clutch in, and you can actually save a significant amount of fuel. So if they feel like they have the opportunity to do so, you'll start hearing these guys if we go on board. You'll be able to hear them doing that. They'll shut the car off, they'll coast through the corner, and then they'll cut the car back on when it's time to get back into the throttle and try to save as much as possible. But the fact that Bowie came to pit road tells me that he either really thought that he was not going to be able to do it, or he just didn't want to take the chance and figured maybe he could take advantage of the tires and try to make up some of that time.
You try to make up a little bit of that time as they go. The other big thing to keep in mind here is at a place like Pocono, such a large racetrack, it allows drivers like Bowie, also came down to the pit lane into the rate machine. It allows them to come down to the pit lane and get service while also not losing their lead lap status. Now, if you're a Spencer Preet, 18 seconds off. Even if you're an Everhart, maybe 10 seconds off. Not sure you're going to be as fortunate as that, simply because you're already at that much of a disadvantage. But for Brandon Bowie, who was running up front, came down to the pit lane, got service, he is 37 seconds off of the race lead, but he is on the lead lap, and that's the critical thing, because the concern here is, aside from the fact that maybe somebody who came in and topped off before the race start can make it and you can't, but you don't really want to think of that. Think good. But the one positive here, Trevor, is he's not off of the lead lap at most racetracks. The 1 milers, the 1.5 milers, you come down pit road, you get back out, you're off the lead lap. And the concern is if a caution were to come out, you can't come down pit road, you have to stay out to get your lap back. Not a situation that the 43 is in. He's in a little bit of a tricky spot depending on if everybody needs to come down or if it was just a number that he saw that some of the other drivers aren't as immediately concerned about, because Freitas continues to lead this race out front. He might not have enough. He might have to top off at the end, but certainly for Brandon Bowie in a situation where there's not a whole lot of stuff going really good right now, there is one positive to take away, and that is he is still on the lead lap.
Yeah, and you just got to start trying different things if the things that you're already trying are not working out for you. So that's a good idea. Got to shake it up, and 20 laps to go coming up in a few laps time. It's go time basically, and we can see the sense of urgency with Michael Guerrilla right behind Dylan Jones, looking low, looking high every single turn. So you can tell that he wants to get around him very quickly to try and get to the back bumper of Andrew Freenars. But as Andrew said earlier, this is such a difficult track to pass on, so you got to work for it. It's not going to get handed to you. So we'll see how long Michael Jones is going to stay behind him for the time being. But right now we have a little bit of a three-car battle going on between Michael Cozy Jr., Harry Tiller, and Daniel Fockingham. Michael Cozy Jr. leading that three-car skirmish going down into the tunnel turn as we speak. I believe that is, yes. And, just seeing how this battle shapes up as well.
A little bit of battles here and there, and certainly you're starting to see the race kind of go into that long run mentality, if you will, Brian Backlund. Longest green flag run of the evening is what we're currently working on. Closing in on 20 laps to go to the end. Drivers certainly have fuel in mind, and I think that play by Bowie kind of solidified that he thinks it's going to go green to the end. If he was banking on a yellow, would not have come down to the pit lane. So he's certainly hoping that we don't have any incidents.
The thing I'm looking at right now that makes me wonder about Andrew Freenars, Dylan Jones, and Michael Guerrilla is because they are shifting right now. And if you're looking to save fuel, especially if you're that close on fuel, you would not be shifting and getting the RPMs up in the car, because that burns more fuel than if you just leave the car in fourth gear. When they kick this thing back into third gear, they're killing their fuel mileage. So the fact that they're doing that means they either have a plan to pit later in this race, or they feel like they have enough fuel to go to the finish. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out. But all of these drivers at the front of the field are doing that currently, which definitely tells me that they know what their plan is, and they have decided they're going to stick to it. And I like Bowie's call, Evan Pasoko, because he felt like he didn't have a shot at winning the race on raw speed. Andrew Freenars was able to get back by him. He's seen how difficult it was to make that pass. He needed to do something different to try to give himself an opportunity, and pitting early like he did, that gave him the opportunity to make up a big gap. And if these guys come to pit road at any point during this race, they're going to have a ton of time to make up before they can get back to him.
And of course, the decision with the drivers up front could be one of two things. Again, you're running and you're shifting. It's Okay, well, I'm good on fuel. I'm not concerned. Or, you know, you're 3 laps shy. You're not going to save that amount of fuel. Run the car as hard as you can. That way, that gap that you have to make up might be a little bit less when you do eventually come down to the pit lane, because you're not frivolously trying to save, you know, some impossible amount of fuel. But the one thing that I found interesting as well, when we saw Bowie come down pit road, is the 8 of Kyle Kamer came down pit road with him. Now, Kyle Kamer topped off on the one to go for the race start. So as you see, Faridar's come in, Dylan Jones come in. That would assumingly put the 77 of Michael Cozy Jr. to the race lead. The 8 had topped off, so we know that the cars who didn't can't make it. But Kamer topped off, and he's already pitted as well, so that would suggest that nobody could make it to the end of this race, in which you would then see everybody come down. Right now, the highest running driver of those who topped off is Daniel Falkenham, who is slid up into what I think is going to end up about the 2nd or 3rd position here in just a moment. So keep an eye on him. The drivers who didn't top off certainly can't make it, and there's no guarantee that those who actually did can either.
Yeah, this is going to be a great race all the way to the finish now that we have a green flag run going. If we do stay green flag, you know, a lot of drivers are doing a little bit of different things. Some drivers waited for longer, and you know, I think that just went around along with the plan that each driver had. You know, Andrew was talking about, you know, or Brian was talking about how they were shifting into different gears and killing their fuel mileage. So they definitely did have a plan for later on in this race, and you know, just really interested to see how all these drivers, Brandon Bowie, we'll see where he cycles through coming to this lap, because he did pass Spencer Pre and Harry Tiller. That'll bring him all the way up to 4th position, and Michael Cozy Jr. is assuming this race position.
He's assumed the number 1 position, and there Daniel Falkenham comes down pit road from 2nd. So all of the questions of drivers save it before the race starts, save it on the racetrack, is not going to matter. It does not make a difference whether you just stayed out, took your 4 tires and fuel right away, or if you came in and topped off on the one to go. Nobody is making it to lap 80 without a trip down at the pit lane, which means with everybody coming into the pit lane, Brandon Bowie's stop looks better and better. Of course, he's on much older tires than those who just pitted. With the cars behind him, although they might be 10, 15 seconds behind him, they are going to start to make up a significant amount of time lap by lap. But certainly with Falkenham pitting, now Michael Cozy Jr. giving up the race lead and coming down to the pit lane. It's just about everybody having completed service. The 97 pitted last time, but he is spinning on a back straightaway. Lionel Callisto is going to hang on. He almost wrecked that car in the tunnel turn.
Yeah, very close call for the number 97 of Lionel Callisto. Keeps it off the wall, gets it going back in the right direction, and we stay green here at Pocono. And that is a huge break for Brandon Bowie, if you ask me, because I think right now what he needs is for this thing to try to stay green. He's got currently over Andrew Freenar's about a 7-second advantage. I don't know if he's going to be able to hold on to it, but he wants this thing to stay green to hold on to that gap. There is a couple of cars in between him and Freenar's that are going to hold him up, maybe just a hair. Andrew is actually coming up on the 37 of Spencer Preet. He's able to make quick work of that 37 machine, as a matter of fact, so not going to hold him up at all. Next in line would be the number 90 of Daniel Eberhardt, and you can see just how much quicker Freenar's is on those newer tires. And looking at the lap times, he's about a 1.5 seconds quicker than these guys that are on the slightly older tires. And Evan Pasoko, we also have to keep in mind, the 43 of Brandon Bowie, he took just 2 tires on that stop. All these other drivers that came to pit road, they took 4 tires. So not only did they pit later, but they have 4 tires versus those 2.
They have the 4 tires versus the 2, which is certainly going to make a big difference. It'll help you. It costs you more time on pit lane, but the assumption is that that extra 5 seconds or so, you're going to be 5 seconds faster with 4 tires than you would have been with 2. That's where that difference in sacrificing the time to take that full service stop comes from. But Bowie has ended up in the race lead with the last lap time of a 53.987. The 53.537 of Daniel Eberhardt is about one of the second fastest on track, but who's significantly faster? Andrew Freitas, the 88, darts into the number 2 spot on those fresher tires. It appears to be within striking distance shortly. He has ended up on the much better end of this exchange, and I can't really blame Brandon Bowie. Trevor, he struggled to pass Freitas under green flag condition, finally got him under a caution, wasn't able to hold him off. Maybe he decided, I need to try something to separate myself. It got him out in front now. but it does look like Friedars has a shot here with 16 laps to go to get to him.
Yeah, it was definitely a different kind of strategy that we've seen tonight, and, you know, sometimes a gamble pays out, sometimes it just doesn't. You know, it's the name of the game here in this kind of racing, so, you know, it must be so heartbreaking to see those intervals come down for Brandon Bowie, and, you know, he's going to try and do everything that he can to hold off Andrew Friedars until his tires kind of dissipate, but I just don't think that he's going to be able to hold him off for that long. Going into each and every single turn that Andrew Friedars will be better than him at, and now, you know, you can see them in the same shot, essentially, so, you know, it's just got to be so hard for Brandon Bowie. He tried to do everything that he could in his power, and, you know, sometimes it just doesn't work out.
And that's just kind of how these things go, is there's no set, you know, reward at the end that doesn't involve a little bit of risk, and the big conversation coming into tonight as we continue to watch Friedars close the gap as Dylan Jones is closing on Michael Guerrilla. And if he's going to be able to pass him, he'd take over third. That could be a second-place result. And listen, I'm sure any driver would like to come in, finish in a number 2 position. But for Dylan Jones, that'll do plenty to defend his points position as far as the Segment 2 championship. It'll keep him plenty safe in the overall championship to qualify for the playoffs that after tonight will only be 3 weeks away. It kicks off in September from Las Vegas, but it would not be a 5th straight win. Mr. July at risk here for having a streak broken.
Indeed he is, and right now the pass for the lead is happening. Andrew Friedars on the bottom of the racetrack makes quick work of Brandon Bowie and will assume the race lead once again on lap number 66. Those fresh tires, 4 versus 2, will propel him to the race lead, and now he can try to get away from the 2 guys that are now battling for what we assume to be the 2nd and 3rd position here shortly. Michael Guerrilla, Dylan Jones side by side through turn 3. Dylan is on the outside, Guerrilla on the bottom. Dylan tries to pinch him down coming off the corner to carry that momentum. You can see he's got the better run coming off the corner, but they stay side by side, and now they're going to have to figure out how to navigate past that 43 machine when they get down here into turn 1. He's on much older tires. Which way will they go? Which way will Bowie go when they get to him?
17's got the better line. He had the better run, but the 43 is down low. 3 wide with Bowie in the middle, and the 17 backs off. Guerrilla was set to dive down, and Brandon Bowie stayed low, trying to get out of the way. And while the 17, I'm sure not happy about the way it went down. I think it was a matter of time that Jones was going to get by, and there's a slow car in front of that fight. Brian Chambliss is in the outside wall, just very slow. From 25 laps down in 13th, he still can get as high as P12 by running around and passing cars who have crashed out of this race, but he nearly ended up in the mix there. And the biggest thing I take out of that is not that, you know, Dylan Jones still gets around Guerrilla anyways, Trevor, is that it took a lot of time away from Dylan Jones. He was within a second of Andrew Friedars with a chance to fight for the race lead. That lap cost him a half a second as Friedars is pulled, and now with a mistake there, the 17 surely not going to back off, and Dylan Jones losing that opportunity to fight for the race win. Now he's got to defend P2. Late in this race, they do go side by side of the tunnel turn, and somehow they all make it, and the race will continue now to turn 3.
Yeah, and you think they'd want to run single file instead of side by side, but, you know, you got to do what you got to do at this point. You know, it's a hard track to pass on. We've heard it so many times here tonight, and we've seen it as well. So we'll see how this works out for them. Dylan Jones now taking that 2nd place back, and we'll see what Michael Guerrilla will set up for him coming down in this first turn, and then the tunnel turn shortly following that. We'll see he's on that back bumper using that draft to his advantage, and still single file now. They might be working together now, but you know, it's just at the point where Andrew Friedars is just too fast anywhere at any time, so really difficult to see that happen. But this is going to be a great race for that P2 position. Very, very costly for them, and almost was catastrophic with some lap cars.
It almost got a little bit hairy down in the tunnel turn there, but they've been able to make it on through it. Andrew Friedars strolling to now a 2.1 second advantage as we close in on 10 laps to go in this race. I want to remind you that always coverage of the Full Throttle Racing Cup Series is brought to you by Joel Real Timing. the official timing software of LSRTV. Whether you spend your time on the sim, behind the wheel, on the pit box, or from the spotter stand, JRT is the go-to software for iRacing timing and scoring analytics. And as we say that, big issues with Daniel Eberhardt, your 5th placed car, and all on his own, I believe, spinning off of the final corner and into the inside wall. His night is done, and somehow there is not a caution.
Yeah, I'm not sure how he was able to get that car off the track so quickly, but did a great job making sure that that was not going to bring a caution out. The big thing that kept the caution from coming out is that there was no immediate traffic coming when that incident happened, so he had time to remove his car from the track before the officials determined that there was a threat to another car, so the green flag will stay out, and that's a big hit for the number 90 machine. He was having a solid run, a solid comeback after having the issue just earlier on in this race to get back up into the top 5. Unfortunate there for him, but it's just one of those things. This track is very tricky in its own right, and when you have a long green flag stretch like we've seen here tonight, these cars just become very hard to drive. The handling goes away, and it is extremely touchy, especially out of turn 3. As flat as that corner is, it can be almost impossible to get back into the gas without kicking the back of the car out.
All you can hope for, and we've seen several drivers have very similar mistakes. In that case, he had actually gotten up and into the outside wall, essentially bounced off it, and then wrecked. That's where his problem came from. We have seen other drivers simply get loose. Doesn't matter if it's in the lesser banked corner 3 where you've only got the 6 degrees of banking to work with. Doesn't matter if it's down to quarter number 1 where you've got all 14 drivers have struggled with handling for a good portion of the night. And that's why the field, as this race continues to wind down, just a little bit less than 2/3 are going to make it to the end because a lot of drivers involved in incidents, many of them one-car wrecks.
Yeah, and really, really cool to see a lot of drivers staying, forward and staying straight for the most part if they do get in trouble just a little bit. So great job done by all of these drivers. Just a few cautions early on in this race, and then, we had a great run here with coming to 8 to go here at Pocono Raceway. So, great job done by all of these drivers here tonight. Seeing a little bit of different kind of strategy going on, and we'll just see how this all works out for everybody in the long run. And currently still everybody spread out for the most part that I can see. Closest battle that we have on track is Kyle Kammer and Lionel Callisto fighting for that 8th position going into that turn number 3, Evan.
And we've been monitoring that battle up front, and on some of the water shots, you can certainly see that Dylan Jones has pulled from Guerrilla. So the battle between 2nd and 3rd has kind of settled itself out, but Dylan Jones no longer in a position to be able to fight with Faridars, I think, for the race lead, certainly inside of 10 laps to go. Now, if that Eberhardt wreck had triggered a caution flag, it's a completely different story. Old drivers are going to be on pit road for tires, and we're talking about a restart with 6-7 laps to go, maybe tops, in a run to the end of this race. But Faridars is able to work that gap. We'll see if the interval sways either direction as this time by. Faridars puts down a 54.324, and Dylan Jones a little bit better at a 54.225. If you're making up a 10th a lap, that could be a difference if you're only a second off. But again, because it took him so long to complete the pass for a second to get around Guerrilla, dealing with the lap traffic, that is nowhere near going to cut it when you're off by 2.
Indeed, and that's just how it works, unfortunately. But you just have to keep digging every lap and just hope that maybe you can catch that break with a caution. But we're getting close to that point where a caution's not going to save you, as we would get to that point, as Evan Pasoko likes to say so often, the point of no return. When we get within 5 laps to go in the race, we will not be able to go back green. But one of those things that we have to worry about is just getting to the finish of the race right now without tearing up your car. They've ran such a long green flag run at this point. The attrition has got to be starting to set in. We went back green back on lap number 42, so approaching almost 40 laps on these tires, or on these drivers. The attrition factor is definitely something you have to think about, and that's why I think we're starting to see some of these guys fall out. Daniel Eberhardt having some issues. We saw Gabe Wood has fallen out of this race, Brian Chambliss, David Comstock. Some of these drivers that just could not get the handle on their car, and unfortunately it just cost them a very short night here tonight.
It's tough to swallow, especially when it happens this late into a race, you're able to go 70 laps and everything's okay, especially, for Everhart went up front and then decided to, either with a mistake on pit road, we have to assume, had to come back down pit road, drop to the back, drove through the field once, gotten into an accident, dropped to the back again, drove through the field once more, and then simply could not survive another incident, and his night ended on that most recent one, this time by 5 laps to go from Pocono, and the gap between 1 and 2 continues to spread. Things might not be settled in the case of 3rd and 4th, and just as I say that, the interval stops closing in as much as it has been. Bowie's been doing a good job of closing in on Guerrilla. I think he would have appreciated maybe an extra 5 laps. I'm not sure he'll get there.
Yeah, it's just, you try to do everything that you can at this point, and sometimes it just doesn't work out the way that you want it to. We've seen this with Brandon Bowie already today, and, it just comes down to, are you fast? And Andrew Freenars has absolutely dominated this race tonight. Dylan Jones trying to do everything that he can right now, but, it's only 80 laps. It may seem like a longer race, but it kind of is a short race. This race has gone by pretty quick, only an hour and 20 minutes to this point. So, every driver has done what they can to this point, and, we've seen a lot of great racing. We've seen some great strategy going on right now, and, it's just a kind of different kind of ball game out here at Pocono Raceway, Evan.
And of course, we talk about what's going to be coming up in the next couple of weeks on the calendar. Next week, as we had alluded to earlier, Watkins Glen for the second road course race on the season, second road course race of the segment. Comes to you next Monday, August the 13th, here at LSRTV in iRacing Live. Then a week off, and then Darlington at the end of the month, and Indianapolis on September the 3rd. Those are the races to go. 3 more until we crown a Segment 2 champion, and 3 more until we close off for the regular season. Segment 3 opens, and we race for the 2018 Full Throttle Real Racing Cup Series Championship that is powered by English Auto LLC. What Freitas does not want right now, Brian, is a yellow. He wants the white flag. He wants to close this one out, and you can taste it at this point. It would be the first time, looking back until Michigan, to kick off the segment, and then Michael Guerrilla in Sedova. Those are the last 2 times somebody not named Dylan Jones won a race on a Monday night here on LSRTV and iRacing Live. So for the first time, if it happens, since June the 18th, a month and a half, a different winner. If Freitas can close this out, he's looking for his 3rd on the season.
He's doing a good job with that 2.6 second gap over Dylan Jones right now, and this is the type of race that somebody needed to have in order to make a statement saying, look, I know you've been the guy over the last month and a half, but here I am, and I am not going to let you run away with this thing that easily. And that's what Andrew Freenars has done tonight. Started from the pole, has easily led the most laps here tonight, and just continues to open that gap up on Dylan Jones, up to 2.7 seconds now, with just 2 laps remaining in this race. It's just going to take a flawless couple of laps, and he will easily come home with another victory here in the 2018 campaign.
White flag just moments away. The gap between 1 and 2, 2.7 seconds. The gap about equal from 2nd to 3rd, 3rd to 4th. There may be a challenge inbound. In fact, we do have a battle for 5th. Harry Tiller is going to make a mistake in the tunnel turn, I believe. No, it was in turn 1. And the one mission of Daniel Fogenham is going to pass him up. So 5th and 6th are exchanged. Freitas comes off at turn 3 looking for the white flag.
And that just, you're trying to do everything that you can at this point, trying to get everything that you can. And, you just step over that line of just in control and out of control, and that's what happens. Unfortunately, he did lose a position, and it loses that top 5 finish that he will have unless Daniel Fockingham makes a mistake. But, you just do everything that you can, and currently Andrew Freenars is on that last lap, Evan.
On the last lap, he's going to head into the tunnel turn. Clear sailing in front. Spencer Preet is, let's say, a good 5 seconds or so ahead of him, and there is no pressure from behind. So for Freitas, he does not need to worry about catching up to the lap traffic. He's going to be able to come around to the end of this one, and he's finally going to break the streak of Dylan Jones and might just make the Segment 2 championship interesting as he tries to close some of the 23 points off of the back. He'll come out of turn number 3 and winner from Pocono, Andrew Farinar's third win of the 2018 season.
What an incredible drive by the number 88 machine here tonight, and just continues to add on to what has been an incredible season for that number 88 machine. That team in general has been so strong, the most consistent team all season long, and now they're back in victory lane. And like you said, it breaks the streak that Dylan Jones has had going on, but I think he's going to be satisfied. 4 wins and a second place finish, that's a pretty good stretch over almost 2 months, so I don't think you're going to hear any complaints out of that number 11 machine when we talk to him here in just a little bit.
Yeah, that is still an awfully good average finish over the last 5 races. The average finish for Dylan Jones is going to fall from a 1 to a 1.2 hardship for the 11 as Farinar's chips away just a little bit, and we'll come around to get to some celebrating with Dylan Jones and Michael Grilli rounded through your top 3. What we'll do is we'll take one more opportunity to step aside, and when we come back to the Pocono Raceway, we'll talk to your top finishers and get you set for the Glen. Round 18 of the season next Monday on LSRTV in iRacing Live. You've been watching the Full Throttle Real Sim Racing Cup Series powered by English Auto L.L.C. And the post-race show is next on LSRTV, your home for sim racing. This broadcast is the copyrighted work of LSRTV, and it may not be rebroadcast, retranslated, or used in any form without the express written consent of Live Sim Racing LLC and iRacing.com Motorsport Simulations. LSRTV would like to thank you for your support, and we hope you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. We're back live from the Pocono Raceway LSRTV post-race show following the 17th race of the 2018 Full Throttle Real Sim Racing Cup Series powered by English Auto L.L.C. We'll go trackside, talk with the top finishers in just a moment, but as always, we want to give a big thanks to our friends over at English Auto. English Auto L.L.C. is a full-service luxury automobile repair center in Odenton, Maryland, that is conveniently located to serve both the Baltimore and DC markets. English Auto specializes in Jaguar, Land Rover, Mercedes, Volvo, and BMW service. Founded in 2007, English Auto is now in its 11th year of business, and with a staff that has over 60 years of combined experience in the automotive service industry, English Auto has an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau. For more information, you can visit them online, www.englishauto.us, and also keep up to date with them on social media. Go to facebook.com/EnglishAuto and give them a like, or follow them on Twitter at EnglishAuto LLC. Proud title sponsor of the Full Throttle Wilson Racing Cup Series, powered by English Auto. Look top to bottom. Top three going to be trackside with us in just a moment. Kyle Kamer ends up behind the rest of the field in all of this. But again, your race winner is Faridars. So just to let you know what the actual running order is: Faridars 1, Dylan Jones 2, Guerrilla 3. If any positions show up on screen, that is to be unofficial. But those are the three drivers who are going to be joining us in a minute. Brandon Bowie, Daniel Falkenham come home 4th and 5th, with Harry Tiller, Michael Cosi Jr., Lionel Callisto, and P8 Kyle Kamer 9th, and Spencer Preet, who actually rounds out the cars on the lead lap and rounds out your top 10.
And Daniel Eberhard, after his couple of issues here tonight, he will finish in the 11th position. Brian Chambliss will come home in the 12th position. All of these drivers ended up in the garage, did not manage to finish this race. Gabe Wood comes home in 13th. David Comstock is in 14th. Troy Haight will finish 15th. Dwayne Vincent comes home 16th. And we have Austin Coop and Scott McClendon rounding out 17th and 18th positions here tonight at the Pocono Raceway. And Evan Pasoko, for the first time in almost 2 months, you get to talk to somebody different down in Victory Lane. His name is not Dylan Jones. Instead, it's going to be Mr. Andrew Freenars in that number 88 machine.
And we figure we'll mix it up this time, and we are trackside with the driver of the number 88 machine. Andrew Freenars is your race winner tonight from the Pocono Raceway. Andrew, congratulations on the win, and I think a lot of drivers happy that you finally handed Dylan Jones anything other than a race win tonight. You guys started from pole. You ran up front a lot. There was a lot of exchanges of Brandon Bowie trying to pass you. You eventually dropping behind him and passing him back. You guys had a little bit of a different pitch strategy, but at the end of the day, it is that number 88 Ford back in Real Sim Racing Cup Series Victory Lane. How'd you do it?
Well, I got to say, first off, thank you. This track is so special. Between here, New Hampshire, and Dover, these are home tracks for me. This is actually the closest track to my house, and I love racing here, and it just means so much to win. I was shaking those fast few laps, but yeah, the car really handled bad out front. I thought you saw that when Boo was able to run me down, and then he was able to pass me there on pit road. But when he got out front, he was dealing with the same thing I was, so it was definitely it was difficult out front. I think that's part of the reason I was able to pass him once he was struggling out there.
Obviously, we had a caution flag come just shy of the halfway point, and there was certainly some speculation. Were you going to be able to make it to the end? We saw a handful of drivers, really everybody at the back half of the pack, coming to the white flag to top off, thinking that maybe they would be able to stretch it, and it ended up being the case that nobody could make it to the end. Did you know that, right off of the get-go, or were you seeing how much you could save in those first couple of laps? How'd you come to the decision that you did need to come down pit road, and then what kind of influenced the decision on when you pitted? Because obviously Brandon pitted a lot earlier than you. That put you in that chasing position at the end.
I think we went back green. There was 40 to go, and I knew you could go about 31 on gas. You weren't saving, so split it in half. I pitted with 20 left to go there on that little run, and I knew he took 2 tires. I wasn't going to last. So as long as we kept green, I knew we were going to be able to get it. But, wow, I just can't believe we caught him and then got by. And Dylan, you always expect Dylan, especially at the past few weeks, to run you down. And he just he couldn't get to us. So everything just worked out perfect. If there was a caution or anything else, I don't think we would have ended up with this. But this is just so incredible, especially after what happened there at Dover. We had a just as dominant car and got wrecked there with 10 to go. So good to close one of these things out. I was shaking, just waiting for that caution. This is just incredible.
Obviously, you guys are in a pretty good and a pretty safe position as well as we get set to head into the playoffs in a couple of weeks' time here. So as you look at that Segment 2 championship standings, 3 races to go to get a shot at a little bit of some extra purse money before we fight for the real deal in September and on. Because you guys are in such a safe position, is that going to give you the opportunity at about a 20-point deficit to kind of go at Dylan and go at Brandon in his next couple of weeks and see if you can do something there, as opposed to, if you're running 10th in the points overall, you'd have to conserve. Does that comfortableness for you give you the opportunity to do that? Is that what you guys are going to decide to do, or are you experimenting with some things as we get closer and closer to the playoffs?
We're going for wins every week, especially next week, Watkins Glen. We got a really, really good car. So watch out for us there. But I think Dylan has a pretty decent points lead, especially if the fields are getting. It's going to be hard to catch him. Even if you win every week, he could finish second and still finish out with it. So, I mean, we're going for it, yes. We're going for wins, and we can be more aggressive because we are pretty much in the chase. But, yeah, I mean, we're just, we're going for a win every week. And, obviously we want to do it clean. We're not going to move anybody for it. But, we're just racing for a win. And once the playoffs start, that changes. But right now, like you said, we have a points gap, and we're just going for wins early.
We'll certainly hold you to that good car as we get set to go race at Watkins Glen next week. And after Dylan did 4 in a row, maybe we'll see if you and that 88 machine can get into a little bit of a rhythm here as the regular season closes out. But I know you really wanted that win, and we'll let you get out of here and get to some celebrating. Before we do, though, as always, the sponsors and the shout-outs. Who makes it happen for you?
Big thanks to everybody in Ages, especially Dave Washington. Like I said, I was shaking out of my body there, and Dave just the voice of calm there on the radio telling us what to do. Of course, Dylan, he helps out every week. My good friend Daniel, Steve, I know Sean's watching. My brother builds the computers, puts them together, does a great job with that. My dad helped me. I actually broke a headset earlier this week, and he helped me grab a new pair and whatnot. But everybody on Aegis, all you guys for broadcasting, all the fans, I hope that was a good race. It was pretty fun to race with Bowie there, and just everybody on this, all the drivers have come out too. I know we're having a smaller field, but it just means a lot to have people come out and race like this, and that's about it.
You guys have now started all 17 races of the season, so we certainly appreciate drivers like yourself coming out on a week-by-week basis and giving us a good show, and we also appreciate your time here post-race. Again, Andrew, congratulations on the win. Enjoy it, and we'll see you when you guys go back to work next week.
Thanks so much. Good to finally get that Dale Jr. scheme in victory lane. That took a while, too.
Was looking good up front as he did the burnouts on the front straightaway. That's your race winner in tonight's Pocono 200. Andrew Farinars goes to victory lane. First time in a month and a half. It's not the 11 car on the top step of the podium. We'll shuffle things down to that 11 machine. Brian, an average finish in the last 5 weeks of a 1.2. It's not a win, but it's another great night for Dylan Jones.
Yeah, it took me a second. I'm used to not looking for the number 11 machine down here on pit road. I had to think about where I was going, but I'm down here with Dylan Jones. And Dylan, I think it's safe to say you're not going to be very disappointed with your run here tonight after 4 in a row and a second place finish here tonight. As we just heard Evan Pocono say, a 1.2 average finish over the last 5 races. Pretty solid stretch for you here so far.
Yeah, I'll take that any day of the week. Second place is pretty good for us tonight. Andrew is obviously the car to beat all night. Didn't make any mistakes, which is how I kind of got on this streak. A few guys were making mistakes, and we just out there running our race. Did it again tonight, but Andrew did the same thing and beat us on speed there.
And obviously, when you're running against somebody that has the caliber of speed that Andrew Freenars is, it's hard to make the runs happen and be able to get up there, especially when he doesn't make the types of mistakes that you talk about over the last few weeks. Had some drivers have issues, but Andrew Freenars has been on a roll all season long. Do you look at him as possibly one of your main competitors when we get into the playoffs and start getting closer to the end of the season championship?
Oh, yeah, definitely. He's one of our top competitors, and I think Daniel, hopefully he can get it together. He's in a little bit of a slump, and Grillia and Bowie, obviously all those guys, and just got to keep our noses clean and put some practice in and have good runs.
And you talked about how Eberhardt's in a bit of a slump right now. What do you have to do as a driver to start building that momentum to get closer to the playoffs and be able to feel like you have the momentum you need going into the playoffs to be a contender for the championship throughout the entire run?
Same thing happened to me kind of in the start of the season. I just started putting in a little bit more practice, so I was coming into the races confident that I knew what the car was going to do through the run and things I could expect and how fuel mileage would work out. And you just got to get yourself prepared for the week and so you have the confidence coming in.
Well, once again, it's hard to say. You got to be disappointed about the second place run after the stretch you've had, but a great run nonetheless. Before we let you go, Dylan, sponsor shout-outs. Who makes it happen for you on the 11 car?
Thanks to all the guys at Aegis, PowerTech, everyone at LSR here, all the drivers. It's always fun.
There you go. He finishes second after a very dominant run. Got to look at the number 11 machine as potentially your championship favorite as we get closer to the playoffs. Congratulations on your runner-up finish here tonight. We'll see you next week at the Glen.
Yep, later.
That was Dylan Jones. A great run here tonight. Now, I believe, Trevin, you have caught up with our third-place finisher, Mr. Michael Guerrilla, who also had a very solid night.
Yes, he did indeed. Starting second, finishing third. Always nice to be up on the podium. Michael Guerilla, just such a great job tonight. What a challenging track here. What was really the biggest part that was so hard here at Pocono Raceway?
Well, the biggest part was just getting the handling down on the exit of the corners on a run. Basically, as you went on, the tires just started wearing out. Even though you're still wearing the right front more than the right rear, you'd still spin those tires up in third gear coming off every single corner, including the tunnel turn. So it's just really a struggle to keep the car underneath you on exit, keep it from stepping out. It's just really difficult there. But strategy came into play at the end, and that's just kind of what won Andrew the race. He waited the longest of all of us to pit, came out, had a better stop than Dylan. That's what got him the win.
Yeah, absolutely. Great stuff all around from you guys. And, Segment 2 championship standings right now. Dylan Jones obviously in the lead, and you're looking back all the way at 5th place, moving up one position from last week, but you're sitting currently, before this race had started, with 29 points behind the leader. We still have 3 races now: Watkins Glen, Darlington, and Indianapolis. How confident are you that you're going to get up into that podium position for the $300 purse at the end of this segment too?
Well, I'm feeling I have a pretty good chance. Hopefully I can repeat the poor performance I had last time we were on a road course leading every lap at Sonoma. Watkins Glen's a little bit tougher for me, but hopefully we can replicate that. And Darlington's one of my favorite tracks on iRacing. So I feel pretty confident in those 2 aspects. Just looking at the final races, just know I got to perform. Easily can get these top finishes pumping out here recently, but we just need some more cars to fill out the field and make it a little more interesting, I think. But right now, just trying to keep some solid runs.
Yeah, absolutely. And once segment 2 comes to a close after those 3 races, we turn our attention to the overall championship standings, which you are currently sitting P2 in that standings, sitting 23 points behind the leader. And, looking next to the segment 3, Las Vegas, Richmond, Charlotte, Roval, Dover, Talladega, Kansas, Martinsville, Texas, Phoenix, and Homestead, what's really going to be the challenge of keeping that second place and trying to jump over the first place of Brandon Bowie?
Well, I think as far as the rest of the season goes up into the playoffs, I think it's just going to be between me and Bowie, just because we had that such big points gap back to third. So it's just going to be consistency up until then. But the real struggle is just going to be trying to get out the first round, because that's the most chaotic round, as you said. You got all those different tracks in there. Especially the Roval is going to be one of the trickiest ones that we're going to go to. But just like I said, just trying to make it out of that first round is going to be really important, and just trying to be consistent. That's really the goal. Consistency's got me where I am now, second in points overall throughout the year. So I like to hope that it can keep me into the playoffs up until I get to that final round at Homestead.
Absolutely, we hope to see you there as well. And before we let you go, celebrate on the night, sponsor shoutouts. Who gets it done for that number 17 machine?
Once again, I just want to be thankful for a part of being in the Dead Zone Racing. I want to thank Justin Rounder for the beautiful paint scheme he did for me, as you see up on the screen right now. It's part of the work that I go to. Go Motorplex in North Carolina. So if you're in the North Carolina area, make sure you guys check that out. Really good go-kart track here on the East Coast. On the back bumper, I got my newly started photography page on Instagram. It's called Guerrilla Sports Photography. It's at Guerrilla Sports 34. So make sure you check those out. Help me get my goal of trying to be a NASCAR photographer going. And yeah, that's pretty much about it.
All right, thank you for talking to us, Michael, and we hope to see you next week down here on Pit Lane talking to us.
Thank you, see you then.
And that was your second place position finisher of the number 17 machine of Michael Guerilla. Back to you, Evan.
Well, as always, big thanks to our top 3 finishers, giving us some time post-race, and especially at a race like Pocono, they kind of get worn out after a little bit. I suspect the case is going to be very similar next week at Watkins Glen, but Andrew Freitas, Dylan Jones, and Michael Guerilla, 1, 2, and 3 here tonight from the Poconos. It's another one crossed off the list, and we've now not only had Dylan Jones go on his 4-race win streak, but it's been a while since we've had a first-time winner. Watkins Glen's a racetrack that favors the road course drivers, and Trevin, we heard from our race winner, Andrew Freitas. He likes it. And, of course, we heard from our previous road course winner just a moment ago at Michael Guerrilla that he likes it as well. So that's certainly shaking up to be an exciting one. It might be one of those races that comes down to the wire like we saw yesterday afternoon.
Yeah, I always love the road courses here in a season like this. We have 3 on the schedule right now. We're going to our second one next week at Watkins Glen. I always love that track. It's always such a fun atmosphere around there, and that bus stop chicane is always something to look out for there. And then always, as Brian had alluded to earlier on in the race, those S's are always going to be a little bit of a trouble if you go too wide, so I'm looking forward to that as well. And, the rest of the season is just going to be a lot of fun to watch how it shapes out, Evan.
It'll certainly be fun to see how this thing rounds itself out. Brian, thoughts on what we saw tonight? And, of course, as we've said many times, Watkins Glen, Darlington, Indy, still to come.
Yeah, and what an incredible stretch of races that is right there. I mean, 3 completely different style racetracks that are going to challenge these guys to the limit for the next handful of weeks. And tonight was a pretty good race. We had a couple of cautions at the beginning of this thing that kind of slowed things down, but then the drivers got into a rhythm and they put on one heck of a show, in my opinion. We didn't really have any big separation between all the drivers. You just had little clusters of guys racing pretty hard throughout the entire evening, put on a pretty good performance for everybody that was watching here tonight. I look forward to Watkins Glen. It's one of the best racetracks on the schedule. You always have good racing. We saw it yesterday in the Monster Energy Cup Series. We see it there every year, and we're going to see it next week here on LSRTV from these guys here in the Full Throttle Cup Series, because it's just one of those tracks that creates that level of excitement that you can really have some pretty good racing. There's a lot of passing zones there for drivers to have an opportunity to try to outbrake one another, and it's going to create for one heck of a race, I'm pretty sure.
It should be an exciting one, and again, you don't have to wait a week or for an off week, because we'll be right back at it next Monday. If you don't want to wait until then, though, a couple of things coming up. Next broadcast on this coming Wednesday, August the 8th, the Cars eSport Tours back in action. I'm pretty sure it's throwback night. You're not going to want to miss that one. Coverage starts on LSRTV and the iRacing Esports Network at 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. You can find a full broadcast schedule on our website, www.livesracing.com. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/LSRTV official, and follow us on Twitter at LSRTV for all information and how to stay up to date as we close in on the end of the season. And a lot of the series we cover starting to get into the fall and closer to championship season. Until next time, though, on behalf of myself, Evan Pasocco, for Brian Backlund, Trevin Valderrama, our executive producer, Cisco Scaramuza, and of course, for everybody behind the scenes at Lobster Racing L.L.C., the entire team at Real Sir Racing, and on behalf of all of us, I want to thank you for tuning in and congratulate Andrew Freitas, race winner tonight for the Pocono Raceway. He breaks Dylan Jones's 4-race winless streak, and they'll go road course dueling next Monday. That race and every race on the road to the end of the 2018 Full Throttle Real Sir Racing Cup Series, powered by English Auto L.L.C, can be found right here on LSR TV, your home for sim racing. Until next time, good night from Pocono.